Hello, my name is Katie and welcome to my shed. The reason I'm here today is normally when you've joined me, I yabber on for a little bit. We talk about the weather, talk about gardening or football or something like that, and then you get to watch me do some painting or printmaking or sketching or those sorts of things. Today I want to do something a little bit different. So it stemmed from the fact that when we run our art workshops, we are aiming our workshops at people who want to be creative and have a little bit of fun and enjoy the creative process, but maybe don't consider themselves artists. And for the last three that we've run, every session somebody has come and said, "Oh, I don't think I should be here because I can't draw." And by the end of the session, I think that everybody leaves, certainly they've said they have, everybody leaves feeling like they've created something that they are pleased with or proud of, and are happy to share what they've done with their friends and family. And it got me thinking about why people think they can't draw and how to try and help people who want to be a bit more creative but are either too embarrassed to give it a go or just feel that they don't have the skills. One of the things that I've liked the most about running the workshops is that feeling of empowerment, and enablement. So you're giving people the skills and the materials and the time to be able to create some art. So that's the enabling part, but also to empower them to feel brave enough to give something a go and not to feel too embarrassed to say, "Oh, I like that, I made that." And this is going to sound really hypocritical coming from me, because I sit in this shed a lot of the time thinking I can't show people that because it's not good enough, or I shouldn't be on YouTube talking about art because I'm not a proper artist, or I feel like I think all the things that these other people are thinking, and now I've come on here to say don't think that, even though I'm thinking it myself. Anyway, that's a really long-winded way of saying I'm going to do a series of videos aimed at people, or just talking about why people think they can't create and can't be artists, but also to give a few more tools and hints and tips to enable people to be a bit more creative. And they are things that I use all the time, but also I know other artists use it, and I think a lot of time people pretend they don't, either out of embarrassment or out of pride. I'm not sure why, but it's okay to cheat. So first we'll talk a little bit about where these feelings come from and why we've got to a place where people feel they can't create. So I'm guessing you're watching this because you think you can't draw. So why has it got to the point where we think that drawing is something you're born with rather than something that you can learn and something you can develop? And it definitely is something that you can learn, develop, like any other skill. If you practice something, you get better at it. It's a basic principle, isn't it? I thought I'd share a little bit about my journey, and maybe that might resonate with some of you. So I did do GCSE art and A-level art, but through all of that I remember this feeling of not being able to draw, and it was a big insecurity then. And I remember focusing on, for GCSEs I did printmaking, and for A-levels I did sculpture, and I know that came from this feeling of not being able to draw as well as other people. And I still can't draw as well as other people, but I think I've learned to accept that. But it's taken quite a lot of time, and so I'm not expecting anyone to watch this video and suddenly think, "Oh, do you know what, it doesn't matter what people think about what I draw, because I think that would be unrealistic. But I think just accepting the fact that you know it's coming from you rather than from other people is a good place to be. And I think that's probably why when I finished my A levels I didn't really do much creating until I turned about 30, because sculpture and printmaking aren't massively, or certainly didn't feel very accessible, and I didn't really feel comfortable with my own drawing and painting skills, so I just kind of let it slide for a while. And then when I turned 30, my husband paid for me to do a foundation printmaking course, and even then I don't know if I've got my original drawings, but I've certainly shown you the prints. But I started off with very shapes now that I really like. I did sprouts, and I did sort of quite naive images from allotments and things like that. And I got some really nice feedback whilst I was doing that, but at the time I was thinking, oh, I've got to take my sketches, and they're going to think, oh, what's she here? She doesn't know how to draw. Yeah, so I did this course, and I remember feeling really scared and anxious taking my sketches of these sort of very naive sprout shapes. Actually, I've got them in my sketchbook, so I think I've got, you've seen them before anyway, but it was these sorts of sprouty, excuse the colours, but very basic shapes, and this sort of image. And at the time I thought, they're gonna laugh me out of here, but that didn't happen funnily enough, because most artists don't feel that way. You might be able to identify, you can see good art, but you recognise that creativity is what it is, and it doesn't have to look a certain way. But even for a long while after that, probably for about 8 years after that, I still avoided doing drawing. Obviously you have to do an element of drawing to create prints, but there was something about breaking it down to very basic shapes which I think made me feel safe. And then I met some other artists, where I met Lou actually, and a local artist called Trevor Osborne, who I think I've talked about before on here, who was a pastel artist running workshops in our area. And he, I think, could tell that when people are, you know, he accepted that I wasn't really a drawer, and I was much more into colour and shape. And I think we had these sort of monthly workshops where I really helped to develop my style, but mainly helped develop my confidence. And the stuff I was doing was nothing like these. If you go back to one of my videos, I've uploaded one, I think there's two actually, one on landscapes and one on birds. But if you go onto there and you watch back some of my early landscapes and sort of images that I was doing with him, I haven't got anything else in here, but go back and watch those videos. I'll try and link them if I can remember how to do it. And over the course of that time, I learned to accept that my style was different to somebody else's style, and that was okay. And I think the sooner you believe that, the sooner you can just start growing on what you do, and you can develop your styles as much as you want to. But I think it's really important to also recognise that not everybody wants to create art to develop a style and become an artist, and it's really important to embrace the people that just want to do it so that they can have 20 minutes a week or a day, or, you know, where they're not thinking about the washing needing doing and the school run and what's going on at work, because giving yourself that space to create really is good for your mental health and well-being. And I can definitely tell that when I'm not in here. So on the days and the weeks when I don't get to come in here very often, I get much more eggy, and I'm just not very nice to be around. I think it's worth quickly recognise, oh, we've gone very wonky there, quickly I think it's worth quickly recognising why people stop drawing and creating, because we all do it as kids. I think it's really natural. You'll see children just scribbling away, drawing pictures and creating, and it's so joyful to watch. And then something happens later in life, people stop. And I don't think it's just because people don't want to do it. If you look at a lot of the research and literature, there's a couple of things that tend to stop people to creating, and they all come back to the same thing really, but it's that fear of judgment. When you're very young, you don't have that, but you start to, as you start recognizing peers and recognizing differences in people's work, then you start to have that fear of judgment. And I think we all have that to a certain extent even now, and I think I definitely do, but I recognize that. And I think that's why doing this channel took such a lot of bravery for me, to make me think, okay, there's going to be a lot of people out there that think your work is a bit crap, or very crap, and that's okay. And that's okay, because so long as you're creating something that you like and you enjoyed the process of doing it, then that's all that matters, right? So there's that fear of judgment, but I also think you get this thing where we become so obsessed with comparing ourselves to other people that if you're comparing yourselves to people who are professional artists who maybe paint all day every day and only ever paint trees all day every day, they're going to be amazing at doing trees because they're doing it, they're practicing it over and over again. And you need to accept that your work might not be the same as their work because they're professionals, and that's, you know, it's okay to have something different. And I think when we start feeling disheartened, that's when we stop because we think we're never going to be as good as that person. And this is where I think it's really important to understand that it doesn't matter. This video is going to be really hard to edit because I feel like I'm jumping backwards and forwards between topics and it might not make much sense. So I'm going to try and edit it so that I follow my own thoughts a little bit better. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit. Those pigeons, sorry, the pigeons in my garden are so fat. They leave poos that are like duck poos. Anyway, what were we talking about? Why is creativity important? I wanted to talk a little bit about that because I think it doesn't have to be about drawing, and it doesn't have to be about painting, or it could be about gardening and creating a space in your garden, or it's just using that part of your brain that helps you create. Will also have other positive side effects, positive outcomes. So yes, there are quite a lot of positive outcomes from creating, and I just wanted to quickly touch on those because I have just said that I get really grumpy when I'm not in my shed. So there is so much evidence out there, and if you want me to find papers, I can link them below, but I'm not going to do that because I'm not at work. But we know that people that have creative outlets have lower stress levels and a higher mood. But aside from that, it can also help boost problem solving skills. It can help increase your confidence because you are breaking that sort of fear of failure that comes with being too scared to make something. If you're creating, you kind of have to let go. You have to let go of that fear of failure because you've like look at this. How many times did this go wrong? And it's still going wrong. But if I was too worried of failing, I never would have even made a start on this. I would have left it as it was when it was plain. And it is coming on nicely, I think. obviously there's still stuff to do, but I had to let go of that fear to be able to develop something further. Oh, excuse me. I'm trying to get comfy with my legs up and I push myself backwards. So what have we talked about? Fear of failure. But it also, you have to be quite curious and be open to exploring and playing. And, you know, if you think about where the benefits of play in childhood, they're the same as in adulthood. So if you're playing, you're able to explore things that are going on in your life. You're learning because you're playing through things that might happen in real life and being able to learn. Oh my goodness, I'm talking some right old drivel. This is all gonna have to get edited out, I think. I think the biggest thing that we can take from it is that releasing the fear of failure, increased problem solving, and increased mood. Let's say those, and I might have to edit out all that other drivel that I was talking about. So I think it's important to recognise that, but creativity is more than about striving for perfection. It's about how to express yourself, and that takes a long time. I think it's harder to learn how to express yourself than it is to learn how to draw something realistic, because you're tapping into a different part of your brain. Yeah, it probably is harder. So we might have to talk about that later on in the series. And you're not always going to be able to express, your hands don't always do what's going on in your head, and that's where you need the skills to get them out. But aside from that, just doing something is fun. And some of my favourite videos that I've created are where I've just been swatching out the watercolours, because I'm not really having to think much, and they've been great fun to do and really good for switching off from every day. What else do I want to say? Just to remember that there's no right way of doing things, and the way you see something or you express something, it's not right or wrong. Sorry, this is turning into a really long-winded video, and I do apologise. It's only meant to be an introduction to the series that we're gonna do after this, and I feel like I want to give you a big motivational ending. So what I want to say is, try to let go of that vulnerability and fear of being judged. And if you do that, you might actually discover something quite, I don't want to say incredible, that sounds too much, but something really liberating. That feeling of being able to express yourself, have fun and play, and the joy that comes with creating something that you weren't expecting, that you kind of wanted but didn't feel. Yeah, you might find that you're able to create something completely unexpected, but ultimately celebrate being you and celebrate the individuality that you bring to, and your vision of something. It's much more about just giving yourself permission to express yourself. And I know it's not easy, and I'm still learning myself how to do this and how to not feel vulnerable. But there goes the door. It's a bit windy today, sorry. Allow yourself permission to have a go, to play, and celebrate yourself, celebrate your vision, your view of the world. And you might not be able to get out what's in your head straight away, but as soon as the more you start playing and practicing, the easier it will become. That being said, the next video I'm going to show you how to do some cheating, which kind of seems like I'm taking a step back. The reason I want to teach you how to cheat a little bit is because I think those techniques will just lift your confidence a little bit, because when you're not worrying about getting the shape right, you can then free yourself with the colours and expressing yourself. And we'll talk more about it on the next videos. The next one will be about how to cheat. My favourite thing to do. Anyway, thank you very much for bearing with these ramblings. and I hope it's made sense and that maybe you believe me a little bit, and you'll come along the journey with me, and we'll see how, you know, where it takes us. So have a lovely week, take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.